What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Nicole Recovers, where we talk all about recovery, my life, and things that I'm going through and trying to overcome, or things that I have already overcome and I'm sharing with you. So, today's video, we're going to talk about trauma, specifically related back to Child Protective Services. Let me give you a little background on my experience with Child Protective Services, and then you'll understand why I'm wanting to talk about trauma. So, when I found out I was pregnant in 2013, I was addicted to all drugs, basically opioids, cocaine, methamphetamine, Xanax, and I used all those drugs intravenously except Xanax, of course. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was scared to death. I didn't know how I was going to have this baby, and I didn't know how I was going to get sober or if I would be able to. So we met with my husband's mom and dad. And you guys have to remember, we weren't married. We were just boyfriend and girlfriend. And we all sat down, and I remember saying to them, I'll have an abortion if you want me to. Because I just didn't know what to do. And they said, no, we don't want you to have an abortion, And I didn't want to have an abortion. And they said that they would help support me and Neil, and we decided to move forward with the pregnancy. So I started white knuckling it. I stopped using opioids, and I stopped using benzos cold turkey, which is so stupid. You should never do that. If you're pregnant and you're addicted to opioids or benzos, you should go to the doctor right away. But I was stupid and I didn't know any better. And what I did was I compensated the loss of the opioids and benzos with methamphetamine. And in my mind, in my drug addict mind, methamphetamine was the lesser of the three. So I just continued using meth throughout my whole pregnancy. And I'm ashamed of that, and I'm not proud of it at all. But I'm being honest with you guys because it's part of my story. So I would get sober for like a month, and then I would relapse on meth, and then I would get sober, and then I would relapse. So it wasn't like through my whole pregnancy, but you guys understand what I'm saying. The day I gave birth to my son, I was under the influence of methamphetamine. And my son, thank God, he was born perfect. And 2 days later, I was able to leave and take my son home with me. And nobody said anything to me about having drugs in my system or if my son had drugs in his system. Now, this was July 4th of 2014 when my son was born. I truly believe that because it was the holiday that me and my son kind of just like slipped underneath the radar. And they were just really busy. And we got out of there without being caught. So when I was able to go home with my son, I was like, thank God, because I was praying throughout the whole time I was giving birth, I was praying for God to please not take my baby away from me. Please, God, don't take my baby away from me. And so when I was able to have him and go home, I was so happy. I promised I would never use drugs again. And for 90 days, I stayed sober. I white-knuckled it. You have to understand something. I didn't have any sober support. I had support from Neil's family and my mom, but I didn't know how to stay sober. I had nobody to guide me. I had nobody to help me with my mental health, with my PTSD, with my postpartum depression that I was later on diagnosed with. I had nobody to help me with those things, so I was just blindly trying to lead myself and my husband down this sober pathway, and I failed miserably, and I relapsed. I stayed in my active addiction the rest of the year. How many?
Like $4.99
That's fine. For the next, let me think. For the next year, it was 2 days before Nate's first birthday, I was in my active addiction on methamphetamine. My husband relapsed also. And I had a falling out. I had a huge fight with my friend Tara. She owed me money. She didn't want to pay me back. So I went and asked her boyfriend for it. Her boyfriend was a Little Rock cop. And he knew me and he knew her and he knew we got high. And so he gave me the money. And I left and I went and got drugs with it, of course. Well, she got pissed. And she said, I'm calling CPS on you. When she did that, you guys, I was so livid. Because I didn't believe that she would actually do it. But she did. They came to my house several times, but I guess I wasn't home because I had just gotten a new job. I was manager at the McDonald's down the street. Well, I came home one day and there was a note on my door and it was from CPS. When I saw that note, my fucking heart dropped because I knew right away what it was. I called them and they asked me to come to their office. I went to their office and I told them everything. I told them that I struggled with addiction. I told them that I wanted to get help. And the reason why I told them all these things is because I thought that they were actually there to help me. But they weren't. What is this?
I'm buying Robux.
Nate, go back. It shouldn't do like that. It should PayPal. There you go. Be quiet. I told them, everything that I had been doing. I told them that I had been using. Now, hear me out. I should have never told them anything. I should not have told them that I was using. I shouldn't have told them that I needed help. I shouldn't have told them any of that because I didn't owe them an explanation of any of that. All I needed to do was say, I'm going to get a lawyer, but I didn't know. I thought that Child Protective Services was there to help me. So I volunteered all the information to them. And they used all the information that I gave them to build a case on me and take my son from me. They came to my house. They drug tested my husband. He failed for opiates. He had a prescription for benzos and all that. So that was okay. When they took Nathaniel, you guys, we asked them, can he please go with my mother and father-in-law? They just bought a new house. It was beautiful and they were very well off. And we thought, surely they'll let our son go with his grandma and grandpa. They denied us that by saying that my mother and father-in-law were too old. They're only 60. And they go bowling on Tuesday nights. My mother-in-law goes walking every morning. Like, they are very active. My father-in-law, he passed away years and years ago, but he was still alive at this time. What? Anyways, sorry for the interruptions. I don't know how to edit, so, this is what you get. So, they wouldn't let Nathaniel go with family. And that's when I had the worst fucking feeling in the pit of my stomach that they were taking my son, not because they cared about his best interest, but because of money. And so I put myself into detox that day. Then I went into treatment. Then I came out and I fought for my son. It took me less than 10 months to get my son back in my home. And my case was closed at 1 year. But I want to share something with you guys. And this is the whole reason why I'm making this video. Yesterday, I saw on my informed delivery that there was a letter from the school district in my mailbox. And I didn't have the key to go get it. So I had to call my husband. And my husband said, well, maybe it's because he missed a couple days of school. And my heart dropped in my stomach. And I automatically thought it's something to do with Child Protective Services. I need y'all to understand that the trauma that I experienced at the hands of CPS was like nothing I've ever experienced in my whole entire life. And now I'm afraid to be a parent to my son sometimes because of CPS. I'm afraid that when we go to the doctor, if he has a scrape or a broken arm or something going on, that they're going to say it's because of me and try to take my son away. I get afraid to take him to the dentist sometimes because I think, what if they think I don't do a good enough job making him clean his teeth, and then they're going to take my son away? This letter had nothing to do with anything, but I put my son in summer school because he needs the extra help. He really does. He struggled a little bit this year. And I want to make sure that he gets the best education that he can get, so I put him in summer school. It was literally just a letter accepting my son and saying, We can't wait to see Nate in summer school this year. And it's only 10 days. It's 2 weeks. Summer school is 10 days. And my son's friend's going to be in it. So he's excited. He was so mad at me for putting him in summer school, but now he's excited. But anyway, it was a letter from them saying, thank you for putting Nate in summer school. We can't wait to see him and all that. And I was bawling my eyes out yesterday. I was so afraid. Even though I know I do everything right. Even though I know that I'm sober, I'm not doing drugs, I have a beautiful home, I'm folding laundry right now, my house is clean, I just got done vacuuming and dusting, my son just got done having 5 pieces of bacon and 2 pancakes. Like, even though I know I do such a good job as a mom, I'm so scared anytime any entity, any government agency, any school, anything reaches out to me about Nathaniel, because I automatically think they're going to take him from me. And I know this is probably like so stupid to a lot of you guys, but I'm the reason why I'm sharing this is because I want people to understand that CPS does more harm than good in most cases. There are some cases where children are truly being abused and truly being neglected, and I believe those children need to be saved from those situations. But you guys, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. My little boy was never abused. He was never neglected. Me and his daddy just struggled with a disease of addiction and we needed help. We lived in a beautiful 2-story home. We both had jobs. And we had support from my mother and father-in-law. I want to show you guys what my son looked like when he got taken away from me, so you'll understand that what I'm telling you guys is the truth. Because I think a lot of people think that I just say that shit, but I want you to understand how well taken care of my son was. This is when my son was born. I told you he had a perfectly round head. This is when my mom was there when my son was born. She came down to teach me how to breastfeed and everything. This was the moment Nathaniel came out. That was me and my husband. We were so happy to have him. I want to show you one more picture. But it's just, I get emotional talking about it because, you know, a lot of people treat drug addicts like they're horrible people and that we don't love our kids. But we do. We're just sick and we need help with our addictions. We don't need more trauma to be added to our lives. This is, like, Nate was 3 months in this picture. I was pregnant here. That's my sister Christine, me, my mom, and my other sister Michelle. This was my son living at the home with us while I was in active addiction. Clean, happy as a clam at all times, happy as a clam. Yes, I struggled with a disease of addiction, but I took very good care of my son. This was us in church. I would never put my son in harm's way, ever. And there's such a huge misconception with people that struggle with addiction that we would, you know, take our kids to the drug house or something like that. I didn't do any of those things. I left my son with my mother and father-in-law. When I was in my addiction and I was acting up, I would leave the house and I would leave my son with his Gigi right here. And I would leave him with Papa right here. And they helped take very good care of my son. So, I still deal with the trauma 8 years later. 8 years, that's how long my son has been back with me. I still deal with the trauma from that horrible experience with CPS. And I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. That's why I want you guys to hear me out when I say this. When you guys say things like, call CPS on somebody, so do this, do that, I want you to understand that there's only a very certain reasons why CPS should ever be called on for a child's welfare. And that is when I believe that child's being abused, starved, beaten, um, verbally abused and you hear it with your own ears, like, it has to be very serious, you guys. If a child has all their needs met, but their mom is struggling with addiction, you don't call CPS. You reach out to that woman and you say, I know you're struggling with addiction. Let's get you some help. Let's get your child placed with their family so that way you can go get treatment. You don't come in and just take a woman's child from her because you don't like her or you think CPS should be called. I'm telling you guys, it does so much harm, and I'm still dealing with the harm and the PTSD from my experience with CPS. And my son has debilitating anxiety because being taken away from me. When I had to give my son over to CPS, he was asleep. It was 2 days before his first birthday, and he woke up in a stranger's home. Can you imagine how scary that was for him? He doesn't remember it, but his body remembers the trauma. And now, if I come to his school to pick him up, and I am 2 seconds late, and he can't see me right away, his face turns red and he starts crying. And I've never forgotten my son anywhere. That is all from past trauma. And now I have Nate in therapy because of it. Because even though he doesn't remember it happening, his little body does. So when you talk about calling CPS on people, you talk about people being bad mothers when you watch a few moments of their videos, think before you speak. Think before you pick up that phone. Because you have no idea the harm that you could really be causing someone.